let me talk about kind of this issue from a personal perspective and also as a Jew. So to me, the two cardinal principles that guide my life from the Jewish perspective were the words from the Torah: welcome the stranger because you were once strangers in Egypt. And the other one is the concept of tikkun olam, to repair the world. And so these principles, I think, although I'm not a religious Jew, but they certainly, that Jewish identity has certainly, for me, been very critical in who I am and how I've approached the world. Also the fact that my own mother was a Holocaust survivor, actually someone who fled from Nazi Germany and was in desperate straits and running from port to port in France after the Nazis came there, and that whole experience that she went through taught me that I should feel that not only for my own people, what it's like to be scared and vulnerable, but for others. And I just wanted to mention two incidents very quickly. That one at the very start of my career back in the 1970s, and then one from the last day or two. So the first one was that I was living in Israel in 1976-77 in Haifa, and I was a young journalist, and I started for the Jerusalem Post, and I started, my beat was the Galilee, and there were a lot of Arab villages in the Galilee, and I was fascinated, and I went there, and I met many friends and built many connections, and one of them was with a priest, a Greek Catholic priest named Father Elias Shakur, one of the most inspiring people I ever met in my life. He's still around, and he's a great advocate of nonviolence and self-help, and organized the community to build members of the community to volunteer to build a community center physically when they weren't getting funding from the Ministry of Culture. So he was a huge influence on me, and I remember that at one point visiting my cousins on the kibbutz, which was only a few kilometers from his village. And my uncle, who I also was a huge influence on me, was one of the pioneers of Israel. He fought in the 1948 war, obviously since now it's passed on, but a wonderful man and someone I admired greatly. And they had also, he and his wife had lost their only son in the 1973 war. Anyway, I was there visiting the kibbutz, and I was talking about Father Shakur, and he was kind of going, well, what are you kind of doing over on the other side? What's that all about? He said something that I would sometimes hear that would always make me cringe, was that, well, if you go to the Arabs, they show great hospitality, but then when you turn around, you might get a knife in your back. I don't think he meant it literally, but and I remember at that moment, I said to him, well, when was the last time you were in Ibalim, the village of Father Shakur? And he looked at me and said, well, I think in 1943 I was there once. So this was 1977. And that taught me something, and I talked to him about it, and I think I made some invitation with my uncle that, you should go there, and you should meet him, and you should feel what's going on there, and maybe there's a way to build a relationship. But it also taught me something very, very important in all of my work, which is that personal connections are so critical. That if we don't, if we just see, that's what breaks down the otherness, that when we get together, when we do programs together, when we build friendships, and it stops being about the other, it becomes your friend. And that's a huge, huge thing. And just to conclude, so in the last day or two, there have been attacks by some of them are Jewish and some of them are not, but saying that Representative Keith Ellison, he's being called an anti-Semite. And this has been on Fox News, it's been in some of the Jewish papers, and together with myself and my boss, Rabbi Mark Schneier, has now gotten up and he said, that is just not true. Keith Ellison has been a wonderful partner and is a great friend of the Jewish community, and I won't sit idly by while my friend is smeared. This is obviously happening because Keith Ellison is a candidate for the head of the Democratic National Committee. So the fact that we know Keith Ellison, and I've sat with him in his office and I've interviewed him about his work, Muslim Jewish work, and we cannot allow him to be smeared. So it all kind of comes, that's been my life, this all kind of comes from the same source. Thanks.